Good evening to everybody. Welcome to our first Thursday of the month Portuguese language and culture session with Filomena Pascoal live from Miranda de Corvo in central Portugal this evening. Good evening to you, Filomena. Lovely to see you.
Olá, boa noite. It's lovely to be here as well.
We've already had our extensive Portuguese conversation, of course, and we are talking with you tonight specifically about the dining out and cafe culture experience here in Portugal. The big tipping debate may come into it, bit of coffee controversy as well. And just as we were warming up and chatting, you were saying the reach of Portugal around the world means that in Turkey, an orange is a Portugal, did you say?
Portugal, yeah.
Portugal.
So, for example, to ask for an orange juice is very simple. You say Portugal Sul.
Isn't that amazing? And George and Diana here with us are saying in Greece, it's Portokale as well. My first word in Greek is Diana. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing. So we'll get more of this sort of insight and revelation about the Portuguese reach around the world this evening with a focus, first of all, on the dining out experience. So if you've got any questions... sorry, go on, Filomena.
Sorry, and for Portuguese, food is always very important, isn't it? Food.
Yes, and this all came from a conversation about a sorda from Jerry, which we might return to a little bit later on as well. More bombshells about Filomena's relationship to food this evening. So hopefully we'll have more of a chat about that after the premium member first session here, and then we'll have a lock-in with the premium members and they can chat with you informally after this first part of the recording. So a good reason to become an Expats Portugal premium member. Sign up at expatsportugal.com. So over to you, Filomena. I believe we can start the presentation here.
Okay, so speaking about dining in restaurants, we can start by speaking about the time when do the Portuguese usually go to a restaurant, because sometimes you think that okay, I could go and have my dinner at 3 o'clock, at my my lunch at 3 o'clock, but if it's a traditional kind of restaurant, of course you can go to an international brand that is always open. But if it's a restaurant, if it's not in a big shopping center or so, the opening hours are usually between 12 or 12:30. They don't usually serve before 12:30. Until 2 p.m. So you can go in until 2 p.m. because after that, you are probably not going to be lucky. So between 12:30 and 2 is the best. I mean, the usual time. Sometimes it's a bit hard also to find a table if it's a popular restaurant. I advise you to go early, and by early I mean 12 or so, 12:30 at the most, if you want to get a table, if you haven't booked a table. And so that would be probably the best time to go to the restaurant. Then for dinner, it's usually 7:30, so they don't usually serve before 7:30. And until 9 is an acceptable time to go in. So between 7:30 and 9, you can go and have some dinner. And again, this is valid for the traditional kind of restaurant. It's not that food area that you always have in a big shopping mall. Right? Okay. So if you want to book a table, you could say queria reservar, or even without the word reservar, you can say queria uma mesa. So I would like a table, or I would like to book a table. Queria reservar uma mesa para 2 pessoas, por favor. So for 2 people, please. Queria reservar uma mesa para 2 pessoas, por favor. I know that there are people who are saying, oh my goodness, but this reservar with is very hard to say. Yes, you can skip that and just say queria uma mesa. About the sound r, In Lisbon, for example, it is pronounced with your throat. So they say reservar, reservar, using your throat. Here in central Portugal, Coimbra area where I am, we use our tongue to say reservar with our tongue. So it's the tongue vibration and not the throat. But
I couldn't see many people doing that, Filomena, on the call. It's good that they try at home, right?
yes, you can
Please.
try and you can see what do you prefer, using your throat or using your tongue to
Does
say
that
the
mean you have to move?
rrrr.
You have to choose the part of the country which is most comfortable for you to say.
Yes. Are you going to Lisbon or central Portugal?
There you go.
Rrrr.
That makes it easier for everybody choosing where to live.
Yes, of course. It's a very it's a very easy choice to see where to pronounce the how to pronounce the R. Okay, so any questions here, Carl, so far?
Well, one question that I did have, which I might be jumping the gun a bit, but it was going to be how to make a reservation, and then when you arrive to say I have a reservation.
Yes, you can say tenho uma reserva, but
Yeah.
okay, I did. Oops, sorry, didn't mean that. Yes, you can say, oh my God, what have I done?
No, I'm not saying that when I arrive at the restaurant. Oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah,
Depends how
yeah,
well I know them, I
okay.
suppose.
Well, it's this is too much work going on, and my head is not the best, the best today. But okay, yes. So you can say tenho, I
Right.
have
Tenho.
tenho uma reserva, I have a
Uh-huh.
reservation, or if you want to say we have, temos.
Temos.
Temos uma reserva, we have a reservation, temos uma reserva. Um, and then you say your name, of course. So, temos uma reserva em nome de, so under the name of, em nome de, and then you can say the name. Temos uma reserva em nome de, or tenho uma reserva em nome de. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Really helpful.
Okay, then to speak about the menu, of course we also have the we can also say menu because it's the French word menu, so we can use it as well. But we have the Portuguese word which is ementa, ementa, a ementa. So usually, what can you find on a menu? You have the several sections, entradas, the starters, entradas, or sopas, because it's very, very common for the Portuguese to have a soup as a first dish, right? So the starter. So you can have lots of different soups, lots and lots of different soups. And usually the soups, because sometimes people are allergic to dairy products and things like that, and they are worried if the soup has got any cream or anything. But if it's a traditional Portuguese soup, it has no dairy products. It just has water and salt and olive oil and vegetables. So no cream, no milk, no dairy products in a traditional kind of soup. So it's very easy to find a soup without dairy products.
Good to
You
know.
can always ask also a sopa tem legumes e you could say a sopa tem produtos lácteos, dairy products tem produtos lácteos, or a sopa tem natas, for example. Does the soup have cream? Cream natas. A sopa tem natas, or a sopa tem produtos lácteos, dairy products, or leite, milk. So you can also check. But if it's the Portuguese kind of restaurant, Portuguese kind of soup, no dairy products. It's
And
just vegetables.
is that equally true of meat as well, Filomena? Because sometimes I think people are ordering a caldo verde thinking they're buying or ordering a vegetable soup, and there might be the lucky
No.
piece of chorizo.
Yeah, I'm presenting some pictures later
Oh,
on.
okay,
Yes.
great,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent.
Okay. So then another section on the menu is usually the fish, peixe or peixes in the plural. So peixe, fish. And of course, if you are a vegetarian, and sometimes people complain, especially in rural Portugal, they complain, oh, we can't find vegetarian dishes. But at least you have the soups. And I'm not saying that okay. I mean, you can find some restaurants with some vegetarian dishes, but it's not very common to find vegetarian dishes, vegetarian options on a menu in a small restaurant in a village or in a small town. But you can always ask, for example, if you eat eggs. Sometimes they make an omelette, or but you have to tell them not to put any chorizo, for example, on the omelette, or you have to be careful because about the products that they put. But if you have a reservation, for example, if you have a reservation, if you say in advance, because for example, Carl, you have been with me with a group at Uburgo in Lausanne, and we had some vegetarian people among the group, and they told me that they had a very lovely meal at Burgo, because I told the chef in advance that we would have some people that were vegetarian. So if you are vegetarian, if when you make a reservation, you can also tell them in advance, and I'm sure they will make an effort to have a dish that you might like. Okay, so it's okay. It's a surprise sometimes, but at least it can be a good surprise. So take the risk and see what they have for you. Then, of course, meat, carne, is usually a big section on the menu, carne or carnes in the plural. Pratos vegetarianos, as I said, it can happen that some, especially nowadays, the restaurants are more aware of the need of vegetarian dishes, and some are starting to include vegetarian dishes as well. Pratos vegetarianos. Bebidas, drinks, and of course, the Portuguese favorite, sobremesas, right? The
Yes.
Portuguese love sweets and desserts. So I'm going to just read for the pronunciation: entradas, sopas, peixe, peixes, carne, carnes, pratos vegetarianos, bebidas, sobremesas. Okay? And so to start asking, so to make a request, and actually today I had someone that was asking me if I could I start with posso ter, that is the literal translation of may I have, right? May I have. But we don't use that structure in Portuguese. We don't start with posso ter. We usually start with queria, I would like, or we would like, queríamos. So queria or queríamos. And then you could say, for example, a portion of uma dose de, half a portion, meia dose de, two portions, duas doses de. Okay, and you are smiling because you are already thinking of the word doce, right?
Yes.
So, of course, you have three words that are very similar: the word dose and doce and 12, 12, right?
Yes.
So you can always ask for 12 doses de doce.
I always do. Oh, just for the fun
12
of it.
portions of sweet. 12 doses de doce.
Do you know it
So
happened? Happened this afternoon. Not that 12, but I was
you
in a
didn't ask
cafe.
for 12
No,
portions of sweet.
I was with somebody and I wanted to give them a taste of a bola de Belém and a sonhos. And I wasn't sure if it was a sonhos, which is a slightly moister donut, or a filhos, because they're sometimes called filhos, aren't they? I think
Filho, filho.
filho.
It
And I
has an
said,
accent on the O, so that's why
okay.
filho.
And I was saying, is it sonhos or filhos? And I made a mistake. And they said, no, it's definitely sonhos. Dreams. And I said, okay, so
Dreams.
it's sonhos dos, like sweet dreams. And so we had a different dos joke this afternoon in the cafe. But so, and that's the thing. People in the cafes, when you're talking, always invariably ready to play with that and have some fun and help you learn some Portuguese.
Yes, of course, yes. And the best way to learn is trying, You try, and even if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. Everyone makes mistakes, and they will help you out as
Yeah.
well. So, uma dose de, meia dose de, duas doses de, and then you say something that is on the menu, of course. And then, for a bottle of wine, you can say uma garrafa de vinho tinto if you want a bottle, because sometimes you just ask for the house wine, and then it's vinho da casa, the house wine, and it comes in a jar. No, jarro is in Portuguese a garrafa.
Graph, yeah.
So, yeah, uma garrafa de vinho tinto, for a bottle of, it's not a garrafa, it's a bottle of red wine, or vinho branco, white wine, or vinho verde, because we also have the green wine, vinho verde, which is particularly appreciated in the summer when it's very hot, and it is served very, very cool. And so it's a sparkling white wine. So uma garrafa de vinho tinto, ou vinho branco, ou vinho verde. And as I said, you can always say vinho da casa, the house wine. Then, if you want beer, you can say uma cerveja, fino, uma imperial, uma caneca. So, what is the difference? If you say uma cerveja, they are supposed to serve you a bottle, the beer in a bottle, okay? Uma cerveja. Then, if you are in the northern part or outside Lisbon, let's say, fino is that it's called fino because it's served in that tall, the high and thin glass, right? The 20 centiliters or 25 centiliters glass. So that is fino. And then in Lisbon, because they like to be different, and they say uma imperial, uma imperial in Lisbon. So it's a 20 centiliter or 25 centiliter glass, a thin glass of beer. Then, if you want a little bit more, instead of just a small glass of beer, you can say uma caneca, which literally translates by a mug. Uma caneca is a mug. But you have, I don't know, maybe half a liter, maybe, is it half a liter, uma caneca?
I
Maybe?
don't know it, but it equates to a pint for people, for British
Okay.
beer drinkers. They like to get a Kaneka because it looks the most like a pint.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's similar to a pint, but it's uma caneca. Okay. Then, if you don't drink any alcohol or if you want water, you can say uma garrafa de água, a bottle of water. Again, garrafa, bottle. Uma garrafa de água. If you say quicker, native speakers would say uma garrafa d'água, uma garrafa d'água, com gás, with gas, so sparkling, or sem gás, without gas. And then you can say fresca if you want it cool, or natural, which is room temperature. And even if you don't say it, you are probably going to be asked the fresca or natural. So do you want it cool or room temperature? uma garrafa de água com gás ou uma garrafa de água sem gás, fresca ou natural. You can also say grande or big ou pequena for small. Grande ou pequena. Big and small. Okay?
Did I share a couple of things I've learned about beer drinking recently,
Of
Filomena?
course.
Somebody said to me the other day when I ordered an Imperial, they said con gage. And I was like, what? And they were just playing with me, right? The barman was just winding me up. But since
Yeah.
then, whenever I've ordered
Sparkling beer.
yeah, whenever I've ordered beer, I've said Congage, favor. And it's great fun. And another thing I learned about beer was I've been saying, you have the first one, and I think the small glasses are better than actually the bigger ones because they stay
Yeah.
cold, especially in the
Yes,
summer.
yes. The preference of the Portuguese are for the smaller glass because
Yes.
it doesn't go warm, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you ask another one, it comes but very cool, and so you always drink it cool instead of having a big glass and then it goes warm.
And yes, and exactly. And so you ask for another one, and it's like my Zuma, which is a great
Yeah,
phrase, isn't it? So like one more,
yeah.
and another barman. It sounds like I drink more than I actually do, just for the purposes of illustrating your point here for a minute. But a barman said to me, "You don't need to say my Zuma. You can just say uma cerveja because it's nobody's business how many you've had. You don't have to say one more. You just say one beer."
Yeah, okay. Okay, then. I have a few pictures for the usual starters. And of course, when I say usual, it's the average restaurant, that kind of restaurant that is not very fancy restaurant, but an everyday life, let's say, everyday restaurant. Because the Portuguese go to restaurants quite a lot. The lunch, usually lunch is not very expensive as I said, in an average restaurant, and you can have a meal uh, 10 euros, for example, and you can have a meal. So it's not very expensive. And sometimes it's not worthwhile to go home and, travel all that way and then come back. It's easier and sometimes cheaper if you just go to the next restaurant and have your meal there. And you have more time because also Portuguese like to have a nice and quiet and slow meal. So you have plenty of time if you just go to the restaurant instead of driving or taking a train or something to go home or also bringing from home. Although some people also do that, of course, but we like to go and have a chat with our friends or with our colleagues, and we also like to use that lunchtime as a socializing time, and usually you go to the restaurant and you have a nice meal instead of just warming something up in the microwave in your company. We usually prefer to go out. So the usual starters, usually they have pão e azeitonas, bread and olives. If you don't want them, you should say, I don't want them, because otherwise you will pay for them. But usually they bring the olive and bread. But of course, if you don't want them, you just say you don't want them. Then, speaking of soup, there is usually sopa de legumes, which is the vegetable soup. And this vegetable soup, as I said, never has any dairy products. So it's just the vegetables and salt and olive oil, and it's very very basic, let's say, in the seasoning. So it's just a simple vegetable soup. It has usually several vegetables like carrots and cabbage and sometimes a little bit of pasta as well, but sopa de legumes. Then the one that you have referred to, caldo verde. And yes, caldo verde can be a bit tricky for vegetarians because although caldo verde is just the potatoes and cabbage, but usually it comes with chouriço, a bit of chouriço, the Portuguese sausage. So if you don't want the sausage, you have to say that you don't want any sausage in your caldo verde. So caldo verde sem chouriço, without sausage, sem chouriço. Um, so this is also a very typical soup to find in a restaurant. And also another typical soup is canja, which is the chicken soup. So it's chicken and pasta and bits, several bits of the chicken. Sometimes you find some bits that you are not expecting, but but it's always a risk you take. But this is chicken soup, okay? And sometimes they also have the unlaid eggs, the eggs that you can just see the egg yolk. So
Yes.
they don't have an egg white, but it's just the eggs that were forming in the chicken, and
Yeah.
they were not laid yet. And they also use those eggs. So everything is used. In Portugal, nothing is wasted. We use everything. Okay.
Amazing, isn't it? And you'll see that sometimes, won't you, in the pack of meat with the
Yes.
chicken
Yeah.
giblets and so on.
Yeah.
There is a
You
there
have
is
the legs,
yeah.
and you have
And that would
uh,
presumably be for making canja at home. And this is like probably the world over. Chicken soup was a great healer, isn't it? And it's the same, I think, in Portugal, isn't it?
yes, yes, and you can usually this canja is more associated, for example, when someone is ill,
Yeah.
is not feeling well, and so in well in uh, 19th century, 20th century, people used to give canja to the mothers that have had a child, and then they would feed the mother with canja to recover. So this is very associated with being ill and not eating much. And so with this canja, at least you have the chicken and the pasta. Then, speaking about fish, of course, I had to speak about bacalhau, right? Bacalhau, the cod, that is actually, it's not Portuguese because the cod usually comes from Norway, but it's the Portuguese way of preparing the cod. Because, first of all, we don't usually have fresh cod. For example, I live in Miranda do Corvo near Coimbra. Even if I wanted to buy fresh cod, I don't know where I could buy it. So there isn't a shop near here that I can go where I can go to buy fresh cod. But I can buy salted and dried cod anywhere in any shop around here. I can easily find salted and dried cod. So when you go to the shop to a traditional kind of shop, a grocery, and you buy a cod, and you can also buy in the big supermarkets. You can also in Continent and Intermarché and Lidl and things like that. You also buy this salted and dried piece of cod. It's the whole cod, open. It's open, and it's very very tough. It's very 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 hard. And before you cook it, you have to salt it. Sorry, you have not salt it. You have to soak it in water
Yeah.
for at least 24 hours. And the thicker the cod is, the longer you have to put it in water. So you change the water a few times to get rid of the salt, and you can't forget that you can't put any salt when you cook it, because otherwise you won't be able to eat. So one of the dishes that are very popular. This is a very popular dish, and it's Cristiano Ronaldo's favorite dish. Bacalhau à Brás. Bacalhau à Brás is this. It's chips, very very thin chips, with cod, with eggs. It's everything together. It's cooked together, so it's a mix of cod and chips and eggs, and then decorated with olives usually and parsley. And it's very very easy to prepare. If you don't want to buy the salted cod and soak it and have all that trouble, you can buy the ready to cook cod in a package, and it's already without the salt. So you can cook it, but don't put any salt anyway. Um, then you have grilled fish. Usually you can find grilled fish like robalo grelhado and dourada grelhada. So usually it's open and grilled, and you can have as a side dish either baked potatoes with some cabbage, sometimes some vegetables, or some salad. So it's usually this kind of grilled fish. Okay. We also have octopus and polvo, and a very popular dish of polvo is polvo alagareiro. And actually, you have a few things that are alagareiro, not just polvo. Lagareiro comes from the word lagar, and lagar is an olive presser. So, sorry. So, alagareiro means the olive presser way, which means with lots of olive oil and garlic. So when the farmers that have olives go to the olive presser, they have to wait for long hours for their turn for the olives to be pressed and for them to get the olive oil. And so they usually they have this tradition as well in the olive oil in the olive presser. They sometimes they barbecue something, they grill something, and they put lots of garlic and lots of olive oil. So you can have, for example, some steaks, beefinhos alagareiros, so steaks with this garlic and olive oil, polvo alagareiro. So everything that you have alagareiro means that it's covered in olive oil and garlic. And as you can see here with these batatas a murro, these are batatas a murro. Murro is a punch, and so it's a punch potato because they go to the oven, and when they come out of the oven, you give them a punch. So that's batatas a murro. Okay, not to be confused with muru, because muru is a side, an outside wall around your garden. For example, you can have a wall around the garden, and that is muru with one R, and murro, a punch, double R. So, batatas a murro e polvo a lagareiro. And of course, I had to speak about sardines.
Stop it.
I had to stop to speak about sardines. So, sardinhas, we call it sardinhas assadas, although assado means roasted, and they are not roasted at all, they are grilled. But we call it sardinhas assadas. So usually they are served with also with potatoes and a salad, like it's in here. And sometimes when you go to the festivities, all the festivals that you have in the summer, especially in June, because we celebrate Saint Anthony and Saint John and Saint Peter, and they have usually people have the sardines. They go to the stalls. Usually there are lots of food stalls, and they serve the sardine on a piece of bread. So it's just piece of bread and the sardine on top, and there you go. you
Mm,
eat you
yum.
eat the sardine. You have to learn the technique to eat a sardine,
It's
because
true.
um, it's better to eat it with your hands. Better to eat it with your hands, and you have to gently press the sardine to take the fillet out, and then you turn the sardine and you take the other fillet out, and then the bone in the middle is is no problem, because you just end up with the bone, and you have the fillet. But
It should look like
you need a workshop for that.
yeah, and it should look like ideally like a top cap, like a cartoon fishbone, shouldn't it? At the end, just only bones and a head and a tail.
Yes, it's just the tail, the head, and the bones.
Yeah.
And you can eat the fillets, if you have to be gentle. You can't just smash everything, but gentle. Then about meat, we have the bitok. Bitok is, as you can see in the picture, a steak. It can be bitok can be beef or pork. You can also ask for pork steak. And fried egg and vegetables, and usually rice and
Oh
potatoes,
yes.
right?
Yep.
Rice and chips. So usually that's the usual bitok. Bitok. Then, if you ask for a bitok, they can ask you beef bem passado, médio ou mal passado. So, do you want the steak well done, bem passado, médio, medium, or mal passado, or rare? So, you can have it bem passado, médio, ou mal passado. Then, because I'm not just speaking about Central Portugal, so francesinha is typical from Porto, and francesinha, um, of course, if you go to Porto, I think you should try to have a francesinha in Porto. This is a huge sandwich. So it's a sandwich with several slices and several kinds of meat. So different kinds of sausage and meat, steak, and ham, and an egg on top, and then the sauce. The sauce is usually spicy. There are places where the sauce is more spicy. There are places with a bit milder sauce, but it should be spicy. And you can also ask for some chips to go along. Sometimes they serve chips, and sometimes you have to ask for chips. Batatas fritas, by the way, chips. Then, because I am in Miranda do Corvo, um, we have a traditional dish that is called chanfana. Chanfana is goat meat cooked in clay pots like these, and they are cooked for long hours. So about 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours in the oven. Um, if possible, in the firewood oven, right? So in the traditional oven. If not, okay, in the usual oven. But usually the restaurants around here, the restaurants, they cook it in a firewood oven. So this is a typical dish that is also very plain in seasoning. It's just the goat and salt, bay leaf, red pepper powder, the pimentão, and garlic, and then red wine. So red wine to the top of the pot, and it's just cooked in red wine. And we have to thank Napoleon for this, because because of Napoleon invasions, the water was poisoned, and so the nuns in the monastery of Semide here in Miranda do Corvo, the nuns decided to use what they had. They had lots of wine, because we also have lots of vineyards here. They had lots of wine, and they had the old goats that the population used to give them, because when the goat was very old and was not fit to have any kids or to give milk, they would just offer the goat, the old goat, to the nuns. So they had goats, old goats, they had wine, and that's why they prepared this dish without any water, not to use the poisoned water. Then going to the south, okay, because Francesinha is in the north, Chanfana in the central Portugal, and in the south, in Alentejo, we have carne de porco alentejana. So as you can see, this dish is chopped pork, again with potatoes and pickles, pickled vegetables, and some seafood, and so it's also very nice, very nice. So desserts. Arroz doce, it's a must. Arroz doce, usually the restaurants have arroz doce, the rice pudding, as the British say, arroz doce. Doce da casa, lots of restaurants have this doce da casa, the sweet of the house sweet. It's usually, it changes a little bit, of course, from restaurant to restaurant, but it's usually a mixture of pudding and sometimes chocolate mousse, or and then some cream. So it's basically a mixture of cream and condensed milk sometimes, and biscuits. It depends on the restaurant. Then serradura. Serradura is definitely biscuit and condensed milk and cream. So is this mixture also of cream and condensed milk, and then in layers, usually with biscuits.
Does that mean sawdust?
Yes, it means literally sawdust. Yes, serradura, because of the biscuit, and it resembles some sawdust. Then baba de camelo. It's also a very usual dessert. So what that does that translate? Baba de camelo, Carl?
It's the camel spit.
Yes.
Star of many a Christmas quiz. We should know that by now. We still haven't
Yes.
got over it.
So that is basically cooked condensed milk.
Yes.
So very energetic as well, and very sweet. So baba de camelo.
And no camel spit, no actual camel spit.
No camel. We don't have camels, but
Oh, so there isn't camel spit in it anymore.
no, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid not.
Oh.
So now, after the meal, the Portuguese usually have coffee, right? And so I have this picture here with several kinds of requests for coffee. So you have the usual espresso, which is usually the bica or a cimbalino, but usually bica, or café. If you say café, what you get is this little cup of coffee, and it's half full of coffee. So this is uma bica, again in Lisbon or in the majority of the country, I would say uma bica. In Porto, sometimes they have the name cimbalino, because the machine, the coffee machine, used to be cimbalini, so cimbalino. And if you say café, people understand everywhere café. Then you can say café curto or italiana, which is just a few drops at the bottom of the tiny cup. So italiana or café curto, meaning short coffee, café curto. Then the opposite is café cheio, full to the top, café cheio. Then duplo is a double one, of course. Two expresses. It's a bit strong, but duplo. Descafeinado. Descafeinado for decaf. Descafeinado. Pingado is the espresso cup of coffee with a little bit of milk. So you can say café pingado, or pingado. Then you have the opposite, the milk, and then a little bit of coffee, which is garoto. Here in central Portugal, we call it garoto. In the north, they say pingo, pingo. But it's garoto or pingo. Then café com cheirinho, you have the espresso with some schnapps, aguardente, bagaço, as it says here. So some aguardente. Okay, some people like to have some schnapps with the coffee. Then carioca de café is it's not so strong because it's with more water and also I think also with the leftovers. I mean, it's not so strong. It's not the first coffee that comes from the machine. So carioca is a slightly lighter coffee. Then a batanado, which is very popular among foreigners, a batanado, which is a big coffee with more water. So and a bigger cup as well. So sometimes people in Lisbon they also call it americano, right? Un americano or a batanado, a batanado. Then the next one, I mean, it's not Mazagran. Mazagran, it's not a thing. I mean, I don't know why they have put this here in this picture, but okay. It's a coffee with ice and a lemon slice. So it's a mixture of coffee and ice and lemon. But I don't think this one is very popular. And then one that is quite popular is galão. And galão is in a big glass and it's half, more or less half coffee, half milk. If you prefer to have half coffee and milk served in a cup, a big cup, it's meia de leite. Galão is masculine, so if you want to say the right thing is galão, queria galão. The plural is dois galões. Dois galões. Meia de leite, because meia is feminine. You should say uma meia de leite, duas meias de leite, using the duas, which is two in the feminine. Duas meias de leite. Then cappuccino, okay, so everyone knows cappuccino, coffee, and then milk and milk foam. And mocha, coffee and chocolate and milk foam. So this is more international, and so it's not any questions here. I'm a big expert on coffee. I don't drink it at all.
Constipado. That made me giggle when I first saw it, the Cafe Constipado. But that's like almost,
Constipado.
it's like the affogato almost, isn't it? A coffee with ice cream.
Okay. So after having a coffee, you could also comment about the food. You could, if you want to say the food was great, you can say a comida estava ótima. A comida estava ótima. The food was great. Then you have to ask for the bill, right? So you could say a conta, por favor. A conta, por favor. The bill, please. You don't need to say anything else. It's just a conta, por favor. You could say traga-me a conta, por favor. Bring me the bill, please. But if you say a conta, is enough. And you can ask if you can pay with a card. Posso pagar com cartão? Posso pagar com cartão? Then we come to the tip, to the tip discussion. You can leave a tip if you want, and you can say, pode ficar com o troco. You can keep the change. Pode ficar com o troco. So some people think that, oh, you shouldn't tip because, but usually people who work in, especially in restaurants and in cafes, they really appreciate if they have some tips, right? So it's not a problem if you feel like leaving a tip, you can leave a tip. So I also sometimes leave a tip. If especially if the service is good, and if we enjoyed the meal was good, the food was good, and so we usually tip. um, how much? We don't have a percentage. It's not in other countries they do 10%, 20%. Here we don't have a percentage, but it really depends on what you want to give. Sometimes you can just leave some coins. So, for example, 2 or 3 euros that you have in your wallet. Sometimes you can leave 5 euros or 10 euros. It depends on what you want to leave, really. Um, it depends on you. Any question, Carl, about this?
I think we can pick up those questions because it's a great subject, and there are other questions as well, and we'll do that in our
Okay,
post-recorded
okay.
part of the chat. But that's been fantastic,
Yeah.
Filomena.
So then, if you want to say see you next time, see you later,
Mm.
até à próxima. So see you next time, até à próxima. So you can say goodbye to the waiter or the waitress or the people in the restaurant. Até à próxima. Okay? And
And one
so,
other thing, what I've noticed, and you just reminded me, when you like a fond farewell in your favorite cafes, it's not unusual to shake hands, is it? And to have a kiss with some of the staff. It's I really like that, and a handshake on the way in, really
yeah.
wonderful once you get known to have that level of familiarity as well.
Yes, if you are a regular customer, yes, you have a more, you have a relationship
Yeah.
with the people there. They are your friends, and so as usual, the Portuguese greet the friends with the, if it's a boy and a girl, or if it's two girls, they give two kisses, or you can shake your hand. You can, wave, say hello.
Mm.
um,
I
you
love
know
that. Really like that about eating out
hmm
in Portugal. When you get familiar in a cafe or a restaurant.
hmm
Philomena, superb. Information packed as ever. Really helpful, useful, strategic, even information. So we'll pause. We'll thank you. Muito obrigado. We'll pause the recording there and we'll hang out now with the members here, the Expats Portugal premium members. Sign up and join us at expatsportugal.com. Muito obrigado, Philomena. Thank you.
enough.